So the final investment strategy number 5 is commercial. The reason I've included this one is I find it the most interesting, and we're currently buying our first commercial unit. I'll get it out of the way at the beginning. This is definitely something that wants to be left to someone that's got experience in the industry, whether that's investing for themselves or they work for another corporate for X amount of years in the industry, because there are some loopholes, and if you become unstuck on some of these, it can be relatively costly. So let's start straight in at effort. I've put a new score in. We put an effort down as a 0. That is because once a commercial property is up and running with a tenant in place with a 5-year FRI lease, FRI lease is a fully repairing and insuring lease. So anything, I don't really know the details, but I think anything that's over a 5 to 6 year lease is considered a long lease. The tenant is liable for literally everything: maintenance of the building, insurance of the building, utilities. So that all you have to worry about is if there's any structural defects, I believe you're still typically liable, and your managing agents fees. But as far as I'm aware, if you've got, obviously they'll all vary slightly, but as far as I'm aware, if you've got a decent tenant on a good FRI lease, they are liable for all the maintenance, ensuring the building's compliant and safe, and you can forget about that property for hopefully up to 5 years. The capital required to put in is a 3. That is because this strategy is financing a commercial property. The loan to value is usually a lot lower than residential, so you're looking at anywhere around, say, the 60% loan to value mark. And if you're not well drilled on leases and stuff like that, you're going to struggle to add value to a commercial unit, and therefore by not adding massive amounts of value and having a low loan to value, you're going to be leaving a lot of cash parked in on there. And thirdly is experience, which again I've given a 3. This is because you need to know what you're doing when you're going into a commercial unit. There's just so many more loopholes, so many more costly things that can come up. That's kind of why the commercial investment we're buying at the moment is some old stables, and we're just going to turn it into 3 serviced offices, kind of in an attempt just to dip a toe into the market. But if you don't know what you're doing and you go into it willy-nilly, you will be stung with some massive fees, and if you've not accounted for those or don't have the funding in place, you're going to come unstuck. So some of the positives with investing in commercial property is obviously the low hassle. This strategy is really popular amongst in pensions and long-term investment schemes. That's kind of because pensions can't buy residential property, but anyway, it's kind of the niche that they'd look towards anyway. And yeah, they can be really fruitful and just long-term slow burners, and you can forget about them. Another positive is you can get massive uplifts if you know what you're doing when it comes to leases. If you've got the contacts, you can buy an unoccupied unit for X amount, and if you know Costa are looking for a unit in that area, and you can get Costa signed up, in theory you can get them signed up for the day that you complete on that property, and then as far as I'm aware, in theory you can refinance that property based upon that lease. So you could be going into a property for X amount, and by the end of that same day you could have refinanced it on paper, in theory. If it's not on the same day, then let's say within the first 6 months, you could refinance for a massive uplift and you've not spent a penny, other than getting a really strong tenancy in place with a good covenant strength and uplifting the value of the building that way. And the other positive is, as I've already touched on, low hassle, literally no outgoings other than your small agent cut, which I think is not typically reasonable, as the commercial market is very relationship built. So for you to market a property, it's probably worthwhile paying for a good agent's knowledge of the area, knowledge of its contacts, because they'll get people just come direct to them and say, they won't be scrolling Rightmove like you can with residential property. They'll be going to agents saying, right, we're B&M and we're looking for a unit in this area, do you know of anything? And if you've got that unit and you've signed up that agent, they're percentage cut will be well worth it. So some of the negatives of investing in commercial property is the market fluctuations. So unlike residential property, the commercial property market seems to fluctuate a lot more. All you need to really look at is the retail market, and then the light industrial units at the moment, they spiked, and then if there's any market uncertainty, they seem to be the first thing that dips. The other negative, as I've already touched on, is the low loan to value leverages, meaning that you're going to struggle to refinance a lot of your cash and pull a lot of your cash back out. This is not an issue for those who are at the end of their investment career and just want to park large lumps of sums of cash into an investment. So if you're just starting out, it's not going to be an investment strategy that you can really look at unless you're dropping onto something rather small scale and you know what you're doing with an exit in place. As I touched on earlier, the other big negative with commercial property is the arguably hidden fees. Something I've experienced when refinancing, i.e. a large block of flats. Okay, it's not typically commercial, it's residential units, but as far as the banks are aware, that's considered as commercial mortgage. And the fees on some of those things are astronomical compared to residential. Arrangement fees, I don't know off the top of my head, but you're looking at anywhere between 1 and 2% of the loan amount. You've got your mortgage broker suddenly doubles his fees, your solicitor suddenly quadruples his fees. I'm not even joking. The fees get... At the moment we've got a residential purchase on the go, and they're not the cheapest solicitors by any means, and our fees for the residential purchase are around £1,000. To do it's a lot larger sum of money, but to do a commercial loan with the same solicitors, we're talking anywhere between 4.5 and 6.5 grand. So the fees do become eye-watering and soon eat into those margins if you've not taken them into account.